Hey, sixth grade. I'm excited to do a two-part mini lesson for you today. I'm going to start off first by recapping where we left off yesterday, and especially since I have some feedback from you guys based on your cooldowns, I want to go ahead and recap everything that you got a chance to look at yesterday during your first day of virtual school. So great job. I'm really proud of you guys overall. I just want to shout out to y'all for logging in and getting situated and getting accustomed to the Google Classroom and jumping in on these mini lessons. That's amazing, and I'm really proud of all of your hard work. Keep it up. And if you see that a friend is not as engaged on Google Classroom or they haven't logged in yet, please, check in with them, call them, text them, get all of our sixth graders online as soon as possible. Okay? So that being said, let's jump right in. We talked yesterday, what is area? And this isn't clicking. There we go. Okay. And so we discussed that formulas are a part of what we know about area. And some of you shared things like area is length times width. We're most familiar with that ever since second grade. We've been discussing what that might mean. But the reality is that when we get down to it, geometry formulas are massively long lists of things that we need to multiply, add, divide, and they're great rules to follow, especially when you don't remember them because they're impossible to have them all memorized. But to understand the concept of area is much bigger than just memorizing all of these formulas. So some of you, when you were taking your cool down yesterday, you put some amazing things in, and I wanted just to highlight a few of you. So Daniela said, the area is like the space inside of a shape or like tiles because tiles cover the floor of a room, so the tiles cover the area of the room, right? And Esther added on to that. She said the area is a quantity that shows two-dimensional shapes that make up an amount of space. So we know that area isn't what we use for three-dimensional shapes. That's surface area, and that's coming later in the unit. But she highlighted that they take up the amount of space on a two-dimensional plane. And Marcel, he jumped in and said the area is when you cover a space up with the same amount, you can make new figures by cutting that shape in half. So he referenced when we had that square and we cut it in half diagonally, we get a triangle. And so he knew that area is something you can calculate by how much of the space you're going to choose to look at. Devaney also jumped in. It's my final one. She said that I think area is the measurement of the inside of space or shape that can be covered, right? So really great ideas from all of you. Thank you for getting those cool downs in. If for some reason you have not gotten to do cool down number 1, please stop the video right now. Go back and make sure that you are putting it in and not just doing it, but hitting submit and request feedback, okay? So I want to bring back what Daniela shared. She mentioned the idea of tiling a floor. So if you see in this picture, right, we have repeated squares over and over. And no matter what the unit of measurement is, inches, centimeters, meters, even miles, we know that they're in the form of squares when we're talking about area. So for instance, these are square foot tiles. They are a foot by a foot. So that square you see being laid down in the picture is representing 1 square foot. And however many of those tiles will fit in a space is the number of square feet in that space. We also remember that we could decompose and rearrange those tiles no matter what their units are. So for instance, in this first image, right, we saw this picture yesterday on my whiteboard. You could have 2 squares, cut them diagonally, and make 4 triangles out of those 2 squares. Then you can rearrange those triangles into a figure that might look something like this, or like the one that I drew yesterday, right? Similarly, you can do the opposite. You can rearrange and then decompose that shape into 4 triangles, and then those 4 triangles you can rearrange it into 2 squares. So breaking down these areas isn't just to say that we did it, but it's to help us when we have partial areas, or areas of shapes that we don't totally know how to find the inside of, especially if you're missing a formula. So for instance, if I knew that I had a triangle here and a triangle here, if I put them together, that would make a square, right? Or 1 square unit. So when I'm counting up the area of this triangle, although it's a unique shape, I know that I have 1, 2, Those two put together would make a square, and 1, 2. These two put together would make a square. Some of you may have seen it differently. You might have seen it if you tilt your head sideways. This is a square right here. And then these two, if you were to collapse them in together, you would make a second one of those, a second square, meaning that this triangle is an area of 2 square feet, right? Or 2 square inches, whatever you're choosing to use for your measurement. So how does the area of the new figure compare to the original square in this picture? I want you to take a second and pause this video and think about how is the area of this figure related to the area of this figure. Take a second and pause it now. Okay, if you paused your video and you brought it back, you should have counted that this square is made up of 16 square units. And if you counted up the square units here, you would have seen this figure is also 16 square units, right? And you have to make sure to count each one individually, not double counting at any point, okay? So we acknowledge that area can be uniquely counted, but at the end of the day, no matter how you rearrange these tiles, right? These 4 interior tiles were pulled out and were put here, 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 and here. But that doesn't change the number of tiles that we see represented in the image. So we're going to go ahead and stop here, and I'm going to move to my whiteboard. So I'd like you to stop the video and go ahead and head over to video number 2 for my mini lesson.